Hi guys, welcome back to part two of the Hard House tutorials. This is going to be about percussion and touching on side chaining. It's a lovely Sunday morning and everyone's out there kicking ass in the London Marathon and raising lots of money for charity, mate, which is awesome. And I'm in here about to show you a few different ways to put down percussion. So I'm going to crack straight on. Where we were with the loop, we got a kick and we put a bass line in with a little top runner bass on top. Just a little recap on that. Kick. We've done one bar, 4 beats to a bar, and then we've got a bass line. Okay. So we've got the kick in there and we've got the bass line in there. We put the kick on mono, we've got the bass line on mono. I have put a little bit of saturation on it just to make it sound nice and beefy, but I'll come back to those processes later on in the tutorials. Just for now, just so it comes through nice and clear and vibrant for you guys while I'm demonstrating building the process of Hard House, that you get a nice sound coming through. So we've done that. We've got this loop. We've got this 1 bar loop, 4 beats to a bar, and now what I want to do is we are now going to start looking at adding some percussion. First of all, before we do that, I'm going to highlight the kicks and the bass lines with just pressing down shift, click on the top one, pressing down shift, and then left click on the bottom one, and then I'm going to hold down control and I'm going to go press D again. Oh, sorry, pressed the wrong thing there. Press D again, control D. I have now got a 4 bar loop. I've just dragged across there. Sorry, I just dragged the loop across the top, which is our loop, which is controlled on and off by that button there, as I showed you before. Excuse me. I'm just dragging that across. I need coffee. So now let's go straight into percussion, and then I'm going to touch from percussion. I'm going to touch on side chain because we are going to be putting some loops in and cutting up those loops. I'm going to show you about that. There's nothing wrong with using loops. Don't care what people say. There are some great loop packs out there. Cutting them up, putting them in, and then chopping out the bits that you don't want. Really quick and easy in Ableton. That's one of the things I love about Ableton. And then I'm going to show you dragging in just a sample on an audio channel, and putting a MIDI channel on. So a MIDI channel on here, and bringing in a drum rack, and putting a MIDI channel on and bringing in a sampler, and putting the audio clip, i.e. that hi-hat or that open hat, the closed hat, the clap, percussive hits, claves, cowbell, into the sampler and the drum rack, which has a sampler incorporated into it. Different DAWs have different types of samplers. I really like the ones on Ableton, simpler or sampler. There's 2 options there to choose from. Very, very similar in what they do. I won't get into the nitty-gritty of the differences. Otherwise, again, it's information overload. I just want to get you going with doing getting up to an 8 bar loop with your Hard House. So you know how to put that kick in. I showed you how to do that. I showed you how to put a bass line in, and then it's your personal preference to go through your synth and pick out your bass line you want. So we've got that. Right, so down the bottom here, it says drop files and devices in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come over to this section here, and I am going to right click, and I'm going to go start with the first one, which is a drum machine, a drum rack. Insert MIDI clip. Now I can then go over to my instruments on the left hand side here, go to drum rack. Now I could have just dragged that drum rack in without actually clicking on a MIDI channel, but I want to keep showing you how to create a new MIDI channel and a new audio channel. You can just, for quick ease of workflow, drag and drop straight into here like that, and it will just automatically create a MIDI channel and put the drum rack in, which you can see down here. Or, as I was showing you before, you can right click, insert audio track, insert MIDI track, or insert return tracks. Return tracks we'll talk about later. So I've created that MIDI channel. I like my percussion to be yellow. And I'm going to drag and drop onto here, anywhere along here, my drum rack. Now down the bottom here, this is now created a drum rack with all of these squares in it, and each of these squares will hold a sound. Now this is quite interesting because very quickly going to touch on this, a little bit of digression here. This is where you'll see some people on YouTube channels and YouTube videos, sorry, where they've got one of these, or they're using one of these with pads, touch pads on them, or they're using Native Instruments machine. Okay, the launch controller is the most popular one. You might have seen the Madian became famous back early teens, I think it was, with one of these and putting all the samples on there. What you can do with these is you can use these by this down here. You can put all the sounds onto here, and then you can USB connect it. You can assign all of those sounds to the different things on here, and then you see people like finger drumming with these things. But that's just something very cool that Ableton is really compatible with, certainly in their live arrangement here as well, where you can assign all these different things, but that's something for another day. So with this drum rack, I can now, there's a few things here actually. Ableton, and I'm sure the other DAWs have as well, I've got some amazing go-to drum racks, drum kits, sorry, that you've got the old 808s and 909s in here, and you can click on this button here, click on them, and it'll audition them to show you what different hits there are. So, which is really, really quite interesting. I know it's quite quiet on here, but it will be on this particular one. But all these different drum patterns. So if I delete this drum rack, I could literally just drag this in. Let's go for the 808. I could just drag in the classic 808 drum rack. And in here, you'll see those buttons. It's giving you a few more options here. There's a few more dials and processes that you can go into. But initially, cowbell, cleaves, low toms, mid toms, open hats, all of them, closed hats. All the sounds are in there. And then I can create the MIDI section from here. But that's just another thing that you could have a little bit of a play around with if you're new to Ableton, is just dragging and dropping them in there. And then you will be able to create what I'm going to show you in a minute, start creating a drum pattern. We're not going to do that, we're just going to do the first one that I'm going to show you, which is a drum rack. So in my MIDI channel, I'm clicking on there and I'm putting in a drum rack. Now, I'm going to shrink this loop back down to 1 bar again. So we're now back down to 1 bar again. I'm going to zoom in this section here. I am going to highlight this section and I'm going to insert a MIDI clip. There's a few ways in which you can insert MIDI clips. Yes, I know. But this is the way that I'm going to do it for now. And now you can see the piano roll, and you can see all of those. All of these are assigned right down here. Okay. So I'm going to try and keep this as simple as possible, as basic as possible, sorry. So now that I've got my loop, I want a hi-hat. I want to put an open hat in there. So I'm going to go into samples. I'm going to go into hard house, just to give you a very quick demonstration on hard house. Let's go into here. Yeah, let's go into here. And hats. Let's go into hats. Hats and crashes. There you go. So we've got a hi-hat here. I'm just going to drag that onto the first one, and then it opens up the sampler. Now, in the sampler here is when I'm going to start controlling classic mode. If I click on classic mode there, rather than one shot, I can start to control the decay, the attack, decay, sustain, and release. But what I'm going to initially do is I want to draw in the hi-hats. So I'm going to go back to my MIDI part here. Okay, and now you can see it's in there. It's there. Just turned on that little button there, which is a little tiny, very hard to see on my video, but as a little set of headphones. You click on it, it goes blue, and then you can audition the sound. Okay, so now I'm going to right click I'm going to go back to my fixed grid, and I'm going to go to 1 in 8, because I'm going to be putting it on the offbeat. So now I don't just want 1 in 4, which is going to be one, 4 kicks, 4 beats to a bar. I want to get the other part now, which is the offbeat. So now I'm going to double the ratio. I'm going to go 1 in 8, and then get my little pencil out. Sounded a bit wrong. Get my little pencil out. Get my drawing pen out. I had a couple of glasses of wine last night. Actually, I had a bottle of wine last night. Naughty. That's quite tame. And I'm going to draw in the hats. So I'm going to draw in the hats on the offbeat. So that's the kick. Now, if I pull this down just so you can see, there's the kick. There's the bass lines. And I'm going to be going in line with the bass line. So now I've drawn that in. I'm now just going to play. Now, obviously, it's too loud on the volume. I remember I told you about the volumes in the last one. We've brought everything down on all the channels because we're leaving that headroom for the end of the project, for the mix down and mastering stage. So I'm going to pull the volume right down. I always pull my volumes right down so I can't hear them, and then bring the sound back up until it sits in the mix. Okay, that's a good exercise to do. When you're putting a sound in, don't just put it in at loud. Put the sound in, turn the volume down, and then play the loop and bring the volume back up again until that sound is sitting to you, how you feel, it's sitting right in the mix. All right? Louder. That'll do for now. Okay, so how I quickly flick from that channel bar, that's quick. A quick shift from this screen is Shift Tab, Shift Tab, Shift Tab, and that brings you right back to that the sampler again. Now I've got that hi-hat in there. Let's just solo it. I can now start to change it. Now you'll see as I pull down the release, it's going to shorten the tail of the hat, and also sustain is going to tighten it up, so it's going to make it go from tss, 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 tss. It's going to pull it in. You'll hear it, and rather than me trying to make bloody sound effects. Now it's just very attacky, and not a lot of the tail. Pull down the release. I'm not doing a lot of the release. Now, what this does, this tightens. You're tightening up your drums. You're going to tighten up that hi-hat, and that's one of the good things about a sampler is you can really dial into these and hone in on these parts of it. Just as now that I play that with the kick. Oh. See what I mean? Now, as I start to pull that sustain back, you'll feel it start to really dial in with the kick, and about there will do. It's really hard to do this in headphones because I'm so used to doing this in the speakers. So please bear with me on that because it's so much easier for me when I don't do my fucking headphones. It's a little bit alien, with doing these tutorials, is doing things in headphones. It's just like, it's a bit weird because I'm like, I'm trying to hear if it sounds right because the speakers will be on. So yeah, let's put that down. It's just more like a sharp closed hat there, making it more open with the sustain. Put the decay down a little bit. Release isn't doing much on this. Okay. I'm not going to dial in too much into the ins and outs on what the samplers can do. That's just, again, it's another tutorial. I'm just dropping this in quickly just to get you going on putting some hats in. You can start to explore and experiment yourself. Don't be afraid to click buttons, turn knobs, and have a mess around. It's seriously, you just have a play. You can always save the project, play around, experiment. Get to know what's going on and what you're doing and what buttons do and things like that. I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty of the sampler in Ableton. So now I've got that in there. I want to get some close hats. I want to get you know, like the classic style that's going on there, and I want it to groove. I'm going to go like a shaker would, but I want closed hats. So you can drag it into here. You've got space. I can drag it all into the same place. Some people love to work like this. Let's get a. Oh, you go. Look. Well, you go. That'll do. I wouldn't necessarily use these sounds, but I'm just going to drag them in there just for an example, okay? And then you can get your samples from where you want to get your samples and do it the same way. So now you can see over the top of the hi-hat that we've now got closed hats. Okay, that's a quick hit. Nice quick hit. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to 1 in 16 now. So now I've doubled it again. Okay, so now you can see here, or you might find it a bit difficult, but there with my color settings on my Ableton, I just like it a little bit duller for my eyes. But I can now draw in the hits here. I'm also, sorry, down the bottom here, before I do this, I'm going to pull up here. This is the velocity. This is how hard it's going to hit. So as a drum, like a drummer, you know, they will go hard hit and then softer. You know, so they'll be hitting hard and softer, hitting hard and softer. You know, so you want to try and replicate that sort of sound so that then your percussion becomes less static and more and less robotic and more realistic, and it helps with the flow of the track. And I hope that makes sense. Sometimes it's hard to explain things, you know. So I'm going to draw in these hits. I'm going to turn that off a minute. I'm going to silence these for a minute. So what I'm doing is I'm just highlighting these and pressing 0 on my or the insert button, I think it is on mine. Well, it's 0 on my keyboard for me in the num section. So now what I've done is I've just muted these for a minute. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create that sort of effect. So I'm going to put the first one up. I'm going to put this one higher. I'm going to pull that one down a little bit. This is volumes, by the way, I'm doing here. What I'm doing is I'm putting the volume down of each one. Oh, ignore that. That's the hi-hat. That's the open hat, sorry. So this one, let's pull that one down. Okay. So you see, these are the 4 hits. So I'm going to shrink this right down now, just to 1 beat. And I'm just going to... So now you can hear, I'm not going to really emphasize this now. Can you hear how it changes the sound? Now I'm sort of doing that pumping effect of why am I doing this? I'm doing that pumping effect of side chaining, okay? But with volumes, which is pretty much what sidechain does. Sidechain quietens the sound down while to let another sound come through the mix. We'll come to that in a second. Excuse me, I've got an itch on my leg. So now I've just done that, and I'm doing this very quick just to demonstrate. I would spend time on these sort of things. I'm now just going to take the first one, and then I'll just do it like this. Actually, I'll just highlight, left click on my mouse and highlight them. And now I'm going to Control D. Everything is Control D, Control D, Control D. I'm going to highlight them all again. Sorry. Control D, Control D, and now I've brought them along. See, now I'm going to go back over to my loop. I'm going to open up my loop again, and now you can see in here that I've got. Okay, let's put the hi-hats back, or the open hats back on. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn those off again. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to shift tab. I'm going to go to the actual sound, and I want it to be a little bit less aggressive. So I'm just going to take an edge off of the attack. I'm going to pull down the sustain, release. I don't want to have a lot of release on this at all. Pulling the decay down a little bit. I know this is going to be quite small on your screen, but I'm right down the bottom here. Can you see my mouse? I'm right down the bottom here, and I'm messing around with the decay, sustain, attack, decay, sustain, and release on here until I get it sitting nice. Okay. that one, the first one, the first hit. Turn off my headphones there. I'm pulling down the first hit of the closed hats. I'm pulling them down a bit further. Now I'm going to go to the second ones on each one. Actually, what I'll do is I don't know why I'm doing it that way around. Let's just deal with the first loop. I'm now going to pull down the second one a little bit, and then the third, fourth. So now I'm getting it sounding a little bit better than what I did before. And now I'm going to highlight them all. Just copy that across again. Okay. Yeah, so I'm going to go back to the 4-bar loop. Back to the 4-bar loop. Turn on the hi-hats. I'm going to turn down the volume of those. Now this is just one way again. I just keep stressing this is one way of doing it. It's not actually the main way that I do it anymore. I found just putting everything into one thing, I had less room to mess around with my sounds. So I'm not going to dwell on this too long. Let's go for some percussion. Wooden. Sounds like a rim shot. Rim shot. Sounds like a rim shot. I'm just going to drag that in there. And let's just draw this in. Let's put one there. Let's put one there. What I'm doing is I'm just going to draw these in just to get a bit of... And what you're doing is you then start to play around with sounds just to try and create a groove. See, as I'm starting to draw different things in, you know, it starts to and then you just start to build your percussion in your drum rack. Now that's one way of doing it, and you can just start adding things and adding things and adding things. That's one way of doing it. I see a lot of people that don't fill out their drum racks. They'll just have one thing in there. So this is what I'm going to show you next now. So let's delete that. Now let's go to a sampler. So we're going to go back up to our instruments. You've got sampler and you've got simpler. I like simpler. Again, I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty of them and what the differences between them, but they're very similar. And then what I'll do is I'll go back to my sounds and I'll drag my sounds into to it that way. So let's go here and let's get that. There we go. Drag it in there. Same sound as before. Hi-hats in. Now what this is doing, this is what I like about them. The samplers is now I can control the pitch a bit more. You could do the other one as well, I know, but I can dial in quickly on the pitch, drag the sample in, and go up and down the piano roll. And as you'll see here. You can tune your drums a little bit more. Okay. Seems quite nice there. I like it there. And then you can go back in. You can go to classic view and you can deal with this. And I'm making sure as well, see the graphic equalizer there, on there, and the volume and the amount coming through here. I'm always keeping an eye on these things to make sure that I'm not clipping anywhere and I'm not going into the red, because I can turn this right that, and now it's in the red, and I see this is really important. I see this happening on people's arrangements. Certainly when I've done a lot of people's mixdowns. I've done a lot of mixdowns over the years, and I've done a lot of masters over the years, and people that have got their processes running along the bottom here, and all of them are peaking in the fucking red. Not good. Something else I'll go into later on about making sure your levels are right and gain staging and things like that, to make sure you get a nice clean mix. So doing it again here. Got my hat in there. I like to keep my my percussion separate on separate channels. That's my personal preference. Now the second way of doing it is I could go here. I can go the third way of doing it. And again, there are more ways, but these I'm just showing you a few ways here. Is the traditional way. I'm just going to pull the volume down now anyway. And I'm just going to drag it in as a sample on an audio channel. So I created an audio channel, audio channel, go to your sample, drag it in as a sample. Go right click, go to your fixed grid, go to your 1 in 8, drag it into position. Control, hold down on it, drag it into position, drag it into position, drag it into position with your left mouse button. Then you can highlight the section, and then Control J, consolidate it. You've got yourself an open hat. Turn that one off. Mute that one. Okay, or MIDI drum pack. Okay, you can really play with the warp in the sampler. You can repitch it. The more you mess around with these options here with the sound. Sorry, I'm not banging that along while I'm trying to talk. The more processing power it does use, and as I say, you can really start to tune your drums in here and really tighten up your percussion. You can tighten up your percussion in the sampler. You can do more in here. Now the other way of doing it with the audio sample, let's just delete that loop. Let's drag that loop back in again. Is you can do what I did with the kick. You can go in with your sample like this, and then you can pull that back so that it's just in that the 1/8 of the bar, and you can use the envelope like I did with shaping the drums, and you can make this tight. So let's just highlight this section here, and loop this section here, and then listen to this. I can make it a real tight. There's so many ways in which you can do things. And then I could shrink that down if I wanted to. Let's go to 1 in 16. And I could do it that way. Let's open it back up again. There's different ways in which you can do stuff, But for me, I will often tune up my hi-hat in the sampler, and then I will bounce it down to audio and take it from there. But the beauty about MIDI, and even doing your drums, your kick drum, is at any point I go, do you know what, that hi-hat's shit, that open hat's shit. I can just quickly go and start searching for new ones and chucking them in there. And with the drum rack as well, you know, I had all those squares. You know, you can drag a shitload of them in, and then just start auditioning all of them as you're playing your track and going, no, don't like that one, don't like that one, don't like that one. Just pressing down on your arrow buttons and flicking through them. So let's just leave that one in there for now. Now, loops, claps. Let's get a clap in there quickly. Let's get a clap. I think I had a clap. Let's just show you what clap I had from before. Because I do exactly the same way again. Put my clapping into a sampler. So I could just, you could just like be very quick and just do something really quick and easy here. Just duplicate this. Let's name this open hat. Oh, my caps lock's on. Open hat. Okay, Jesus Christ, these things go on for a very long time. I'm just going to do percussion here, and then I'm going to do side chaining on the second one, so that you've not got these long-winded videos. And then I've got closed hat here, clap. Sorry. So do the same thing again. Rename, put in a clap. Okay, and then you can just quickly go in there. You can find your claps. Find a clap. Let's just quickly drag that one in. Let's put it on the actual where we want it to be. We want it to be on every other kick. So you know, bump, clap. You know, we want to be on every other clap. So I'll go back to my 1 in 8. Something 1 in 4. 1 on the first, second, 1 on the So one on the second and one on the fourth clap. One on the fourth hit kick. I can then just ease that off a little bit. I can go up and down the piano roll. And put it where I wanted to put it. Now that is the other way of putting in all of your percussion. Now I'm just going to drag in just to demonstrate now, because of these videos can just go on for so long, and I don't want to bore people too much. Well, not bore people, but you know, just rabbit on too much. Let's just go to Power Junkie, which is the track that I'm going to be showing you, and let's just go drum bus. I'm going to drag in my drum bus for a minute, and I'm going to show you. I'm going to pull over some of the elements. So my clap, what's here? Okay, and closed hats that I created. Same way, created them in the MIDI, then bounced them down to audio. Now to bounce down to audio, so when you've got your hi-hats the way you want them, and you're like, right, actually, do you know what? I want to bounce these down to audio. You can right-click. So come over here, right-click. Excuse me. Freeze track. Brain fart then. Freeze track, and that will highlight it like this. It'll highlight all of your processes and stuff like that you've put on your open hat, because I haven't EQ'd it yet. And then you can flatten it. But before I do that, let's undo that. I will put, well, actually I haven't shown you, I will put some EQ onto this hat. So I'll go for my EQ8, I'll bring that in, EQ8 over audio effects, EQs and filters. I will then get the first parameter, and I will come down here, and I will go and give it a low cut, and then I'm going to pull this off because I'm going to take everything off that's in the bassline zone and the kick zone. I'm going to pull it right up. I don't want to make it too weak. I want to still have somebody in there. Now this is using the stop plugin, and give it a little bit of a boost. Pull over parameter 3, give it a little bit of a boost there as well. Now all of this area here you can see pumping. That is I'm getting rid of that. I'm getting rid of those frequencies, so there's nothing that's bleeding over into the bass line and the mid-range section of the track, the lower mids of the track. So I'm giving it a bit of an EQ, and then I am then I'm basically going to bounce it down into audio. So I'm going to right click, I'm going to freeze, and then I'm going to flatten. And now I've got my hi-hat, which has been EQ'd as well. Okay. Now, the other thing that I will do here, excuse me, with my percussion. This is another thing I want to show you with percussion. See, I could spend so long on this. I am going to show you the one way of side chaining, which is with the LFOTool. This is a great bit of kit. It's so much quicker and easier to use than a compressor way of doing it. What am I on? 35 minutes. So this is a way of dipping this section of the sound. So I'm going to quickly touch on it now, and then in the next video I'm going to go a little bit in depth in using sidechain with a compressor and with a plugin like LFOTool. There's also Nicky Romero's kick drum, is it, or something like that, which can also create a side chaining effects. That's another good program, but LFOTool is the one that I use. As I said, I will go into more detail. So as I said to you before, I created I showed you how to create closed hats going and here is one I made earlier that I'd bounced down to audio. Now I'm going to turn off the effects that I've got on them, and then I'm going to show you the effects. Now you can see here, when I zoom in on it, you can see here that it's quiet, louder, loud, and then quiet again. So I'm already creating that pump effect, that roll that a drummer would do with the velocities. You know, light, harder, harder, light. You know, it's now what I want to do though is I want to make sure it's really pumping with the beat, because when I put the beat on, I want to give it even more sidechain effect. I want to make sure it's definitely ducking. And show here just how much I'm taking off, which is not a lot because I'd already created that effect. Now, something that a lot of people ask me is when you've got these sounds going, people go, some people sound really wide. Well, I'm going to show you a trick here, which you're going to find very, very useful if you've not heard of it. Something called the Haas Effect. It's been around for bloody years. I think maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, I think from the 60s it was created. And it was created by creating the illusion to your ears that using delay, that it's actually spreading around your head. Now it's very cool, and you can do it really, really easy here. This is what the sound sounds like. I'm going to turn it on, off. If you put headphones on and listen to this, you'll hear this about off, there, on, suddenly they're there. And this is creating that spread of the sound effect. Now I'm going to show you how to do it. What you do is you'll go into your effects, you go to delay, you come down here and you drop in to your effects. You drop your effects here on the channel. So I'm on the channel of the closed hats here, and I'm going to come down and I'm going to drop a delay in. Okay, now the delay is automatically on. You turn off the syncs and turn them to time. Okay, you unlink them, turn it to time. You pull them both down, both sides down, so they're at 1 millisecond. You turn the feedback completely off. You pull the wet and dry right up. Okay, you can leave that where it is for now. Now you won't be hearing anything here, but I'm going to put the sound on its own. And then what I'm going to do, you can either go left hand side or right hand side. I'm going to start to bring up the delay in milliseconds. You hear it start to spread. Further you go, the more you're getting that effect. Put it back down again, round about there, turn it off. It's now in the middle. Turn it on. It's now wider. This is called the Haas Effect. It's very, very cool. I use it a lot. as a quick, easy way just to spread my percussion and my loops, and rather that you can use a stereo imager, but this has got very little processing power. It's a stock plugin. It's the delay in there. I've shown you how to do it. You can stop and rewind this video just to see how I've done that, because I just showed it to you quickly. But that is how you can create the Haas effect and make your sounds, make it sound wide. Okay. So I can have that going. I can have the hi-hat going, the open hat going. Whoop. Clap. Let's just bring that across. Okay. Now I'm going to show you very quickly what I will do if I was adding in loops. Now, with loops, I will go to my loops that I've got, samples, samples. Okay. This video went on longer than what I expected. That's why I'm going to have to show the sidechain in another video. Hard house. Let's go to find some loops. Let's just get some loops in there. Okay, that'll do. Let's drag that in. So don't do that yet. Let's just what I'm going to do here is do what I said before. I'm going to go right click. I'm going to go insert a MIDI, insert an audio channel, pull it down in the mix, make it a bit quieter, and then I'm going to drag my loop over. Now what I'm going to do is I'm not just going to use this whole loop. I'm not just going to go, right, there you go. I'm going to start listening to the loop. I'm going to go, what do I want out of that loop? What have I already got in the track already? I've already got these open hats and stuff like that. I've already got a clap going on. What's this got in it? I quite like that sort of little glitch effect. Where is that? There. Right, I can hear it there. So I could, let's just get rid of that part of it. So what I'm doing is sorry, let me slow down. I'm highlighting with my mouse, left click on my mouse and highlight that section, and then pressing delete. I don't want that section, highlighting it, delete. Oh, I don't want that first part of that. I don't want that bit because that's clashing with that, and I've already got some stuff going on there. So let's go to 1 in 32s. Double it again. There's a lovely little effect there. So let's get rid of those parts there. Don't want that. I don't want that. I want that. Don't want that. Let's see what's doing. This is a very, I'm doing this very, very rough and ready, okay? Just to quickly show you because of these videos have gone too long. See, I could put that in there. Don't like those. Well, I like that. Give it the Haas effect quickly. Audio, delay, bang it on there. Turn the times off. Unlink times. Pull them, both of them down. Feedback off. Dry and wet right up to 100%. Make them nice and wide. There, I've got 15 milliseconds, nice and wide. It's quite cool that. You know, it's creating an effect. And now, very quickly, I'm going to show you the loops that I made earlier. Otherwise, I'll be going to do this forever and a day. Let's make this wider here. Pardon me, excuse me. My breath was coming up. I don't really be burping down the mic. That's terrible. Oh. What I'm going to do quickly is I'm going to highlight that section there, which is 1 bar. I'm then going to Control J to make those little effects in there. I'm going to rename that as in like a glitch effect. Let's call it that, glitch, because it's like a glitch sort of effect. I don't know, it's just a sound. And then I'm going to Control D, Control D, Control D, drag them across. Now you can see here I've dragged in a shaker. I've given it an LFOTool. If I turn the LFOTool off, on. It's pumping. It's giving that sidechain effect. I've done a proper cut off of this one at where am I? I'm around about 200 on the shuffle. Sometimes I'll cut the ends off of the shakers as well, the high end, because I don't want it to interfere with some of the upper percussion, the higher end of the percussion, like the hi-hats. I won't tell you about the audio filters yet. That's just basically when auto filters when I'm pulling sounds in and out, but we'll come to that later. And then there's another loop here that I've done that I chopped up and then consolidated. Just wanted that sound out of it. And then I wanted sounds out of this one. You can see LFOTool's on, and that's pushing quite high. See, that's poking into the red there, so I need to pull that down. I should really pull that down in the volume. And sometimes that can be spiking in the red a little bit because the actual overall sample of the sound is a bit too high, so you can put it down here. That's starting to pull it out of the red a little bit. So when you listen to these together, starting to create a groove. That glitch is rubbish. It doesn't work with this sound, but I put it in there just to give you an example. So we'll get rid of that. What else did I have in here? That's the open hat. That's the open hat that I already had. Other percussion here. Another one that I've taken, I've chopped up and then reconsolidated and just taking out the parts that I don't want. So you can see that the drums are starting to develop. And again, as all these loops, things like that, I either dragged them in as a loop or I've created them in the drum rack and then I have bounced them down to audio and put them into it. But that is the way in which I will create my percussion within my tracks. And then start to EQ them and put some Haas Effect on them, put some delay on them sometimes, something called ghost percussion, which you'll hear a lot in sort of like tech house and stuff like that. They have something called ghost percussion, and it's created with effects, with delays and reverbs, things like that, to fill in the gaps and create that sort of like that Tool Room, Mark Knight, all that sort of tech housey stuff, yeah, that sort of stuff, I think I got his name right. So yeah, thank you guys. This has gone on for 48 minutes. Bloody hell. I could go on for forever and ever, but I hope all of this is helping. That was different ways. The reason why it's gone on for so long is because there's different ways in which you can do this, and I wanted to touch on all of them in one video. You can skip this video and move between different things. So I'll leave it for now. Sidechain compression with compressors. Sidechain effect with compressors and with plugins. A little bit more in depth. Cheers, guys.